My first solo trip, imagine this. You standing alone in an airport halfway across the world. Your heart is beating like a drum, a mix of pure terror and wild excitement. Sound familiar? Or maybe it sounds like your biggest dream, or your biggest fear. My first solo trip felt like all of those things at once. Hi everyone, and welcome to Story Driven English. I'm so happy you're here. If you want to improve your English while listening to fun, real-life stories, you're in the right place. Today I'm sharing a very personal story, the story of my very first adventure all by myself. It was messy, it was funny, and it completely changed me. Stick around to hear all about it, and hey, if you like stories and learning English, why not hit that subscribe button right now? Go on, I'll wait. Pause with a smile. Okay, let's dive in. For the longest time, my life felt predictable. Like a song I knew all the words to, played on repeat. Wake up, go to work at my perfectly nice but slightly boring office job, come home, watch TV, sleep. Repeat. It wasn't a bad life, not at all. It was comfortable, safe. But deep down, a little voice whispered, "Isn't there more?" I saw pictures online. Friends posting about amazing trips. They always seemed to be laughing, standing in front of famous buildings or beautiful beaches, usually surrounded by other people. Traveling looked incredible, but the idea of going alone? That seemed, impossible, scary. What if I got lost? What if I felt lonely? What if I hated it? My brain was very good at asking what-if questions, usually the scary kind. Then one rainy Tuesday afternoon, scrolling through travel blogs during my lunch break, don't tell my boss, I saw a picture of Prague, the Charles Bridge at dawn, misty and magical, Old Town Square looking like something out of a fairy tale. Suddenly it wasn't just a picture, it was a pull, a feeling. And before my sensible brain could list all the reasons not to, I found myself typing flights to Prague into a search engine. The price was surprisingly okay. Not cheap, but not impossible. An idea, wild and crazy, sparked in my mind. What if I went? Just me? The little voice that usually whispered doubts suddenly shouted, "Yes, do it!" My finger hovered over the Book Now button for what felt like an eternity. My sensible brain was screaming, "Are you crazy? You can't even decide what to have for dinner most nights." But the adventurous spark, the one that had been hiding under piles of routine, flared up. Click, and just like that, it was done. I, Anna, the queen of comfort zones, had booked a one-week trip to Prague, alone. My stomach immediately did a flip-flop, a weird combination of, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" and "This is going to be amazing." The weeks leading up to the trip were a blur of excitement and low-key panic. Telling my family and friends was interesting. My mom worried a lot. "Alone, Prague? Are you sure, honey? Do you know anyone there? Will you call me every day, twice a day?" My dad just raised his eyebrows and said, "Well, that's brave." My friends were mostly excited for me, mixed with a little bit of, "Are you completely mad?" Then came the packing. Oh, the packing. I am historically a terrible packer. I operate on the principle of, what if I suddenly need 7 different fancy outfits even though I'm planning on mostly walking around? My suitcase looked like it was preparing for a 6-month expedition, not a 1-week city break. I had clothes for every imaginable type of weather. 3 pairs of shoes I probably wouldn't wear, a first aid kit that could handle minor surgery, and enough snacks to feed a small army. Trying to close the suitcase was a workout in itself. I had to sit on it. It groaned in protest. I groaned back. Finally, defeated, I took half the stuff out, reminding myself I could buy toothpaste in Prague if I ran out. Revolutionary, I know. Saying goodbye at the airport felt strangely final, even though it was only for a week. My mom gave me a hug that lasted approximately 5 minutes and slipped an extra $50 into my pocket for emergencies. My dad gave me a firm handshake and a "have fun, kiddo. Don't get lost." Easy for him to say. Walking towards the security gate, pulling my slightly less overpacked suitcase, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was terrified. Absolutely, genuinely scared. Every what-if question came flooding back. But underneath the fear, there was a tiny flickering flame of excitement. I was actually doing it. Me. Alone. The flight itself was uneventful, mostly. I sat next to a man who snored loudly the entire time, occasionally jolting awake and looking around suspiciously before nodding off again. I tried to read my Prague guidebook, but the words swam in front of my eyes. My mind was racing. What would the hostel be like? Would I be able to figure out the public transport? Would I just wander around feeling awkward and alone for 7 days? When the plane finally landed in Prague, my heart was pounding. This was it. No turning back. I followed the signs for baggage claim, my eyes wide, trying to take everything in. The language on the signs was different. The air smelled different. Even the light seemed different. It was overwhelming, but also thrilling. Finding my suitcase. Miraculously, it had survived the journey, and navigating through customs felt like my first little victory. Okay, Anna, you can do this. Next challenge, getting to the hostel. My guidebook had detailed instructions involving a bus and then the metro. Simple, right? Well, simple on paper. Standing at the bus stop, trying to decipher the ticket machine, felt a wave of panic wash over me. The machine seemed to have 50 buttons, all labeled in Czech. People were bustling around, confidently buying tickets, hopping on buses. I felt incredibly small and stupid. I took a deep breath. Okay, plan B. Taxi. It would cost more, but right now my sanity felt more valuable than a few extra Czech koruna. The taxi ride was my first real glimpse of Prague. We drove past colorful buildings with ornate decorations, crossed over the Vltava River, and I caught sight of the castle perched high on a hill. It was beautiful. Even through the slightly grubby taxi window, it looked like the pictures, only real. My hostel was tucked away down a narrow cobblestone street. It wasn't fancy, but it looked clean and friendly. The receptionist, a young woman with bright pink hair, smiled warmly. "Ah, Anna, welcome to Prague. First time here, first time solo?" I nodded shyly. "Yes, to both." She grinned. "You'll love it. Everyone's a bit nervous at first. Just breathe, okay? And don't be afraid to get lost. Sometimes that's the best part." My room was small. Just a bed, a wardrobe, and a little window overlooking a quiet courtyard. It was basic, but it was mine. My little haven in this big, unfamiliar city. I unpacked my carefully curated selection of clothes, still probably too many, arranging everything neatly. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and just breathed. I was here. I had made it. I was alone in Prague. The first wave of loneliness hit me that evening. As dusk fell, painting the sky pink and orange, I walked towards the old town square. It was bustling with people, couples holding hands, families laughing, groups of friends chatting. And then there was me. Just me. For a moment I felt a sharp pang of sadness. Maybe my mom was right, maybe this was a mistake. I missed the familiar comfort of home, the easy chat with my friends. I found a small restaurant with outdoor seating, and ordered goulash, pointing at the menu because my attempts at Czech pronunciation were hilariously bad. The waiter smiled kindly, probably used to clueless tourists like me. As I ate, watching the world go by, a different feeling started to creep in. It wasn't loneliness anymore. It was observation. I was noticing things I wouldn't normally notice if I were busy talking to someone. The way the light hit the astronomical clock, the sound of a distant violin playing, the different languages swirling around me. It was fascinating. And I realized something important. Being alone didn't have to mean being lonely. It could mean being free. Free to go wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Free to stop and stare at a beautiful building for 10 minutes without worrying if someone else was bored. Free to eat cake for dinner if I felt like it, which I seriously considered. The next few days were a whirlwind of exploration and discovery. I walked for miles, my feet aching but my spirit soaring. I got lost constantly. My sense of direction is, shall we say, creatively challenged. But the receptionist was right. Getting lost was often the best part. I stumbled upon hidden courtyards, quirky little shops selling marionettes, tiny cafes filled with the smell of coffee and pastries. I learned to navigate the metro, feeling ridiculously proud of myself each time I successfully reached my destination without ending up in a completely different part of the city. I visited Prague Castle, feeling dwarfed by its history and grandeur. I walked across the Charles Bridge countless times, at dawn, midday, and dusk, each time seeing it differently. I learned to say Dobry den, good day, and Dekuji, thank you. And even though my accent was terrible, people usually smiled back. There were definitely moments of awkwardness, like the time I tried to order coffee and somehow ended up with a large beer instead. Or the time I tripped on a cobblestone, they are everywhere, and nearly fell flat on my face in front of a crowd of very cool-looking teenagers. I blushed, furiously, picked myself up and pretended to be deeply interested in a nearby statue. Smooth. But there were also moments of pure magic. One afternoon I climbed Petrin Hill. It was a bit of a hike, but the view from the top was breathtaking. The entire city spread out below me, a sea of red roofs, church spires, and the winding river. I just stood there, catching my breath, feeling incredibly small and yet somehow powerful. I had climbed that hill all by myself. I had navigated this city all by myself. I started talking to people more, tentatively at first. A nod to the old lady selling trdelník, a delicious cinnamon pastry. A smile at another solo traveler looking equally lost. A quick chat with the pink-haired receptionist about the best place to find cheap souvenirs. It wasn't always easy. I'm naturally quite shy. But each small interaction felt like unlocking a new achievement level in the game of solo travel. One evening, I decided to be brave and joined a free walking tour. Our guide was a funny, energetic student who told us stories about Prague's history, legends, and ghosts. I ended up chatting with a girl from Australia and a guy from Brazil. We were all solo travelers, all navigating this adventure on our own terms. After the tour, we went for dinner together, sharing travel stories, laughing at our mistakes and exchanging tips. For a few hours, I wasn't alone anymore. But it felt different from being with my friends back home. This was a connection born out of shared experience, a temporary camaraderie that felt special, precisely because it was fleeting. Another challenge was eating alone every night. At first, I felt self-conscious, hiding behind my book or phone. But gradually I started to enjoy it. It was a chance to people watch, to reflect on my day, to simply be present. I discovered I actually quite liked my own company. Who knew? One rainy afternoon, I ducked into a small, cozy cafe. I ordered a hot chocolate and a slice of apple strudel and sat by the window, watching the rain fall on the cobblestones. I pulled out the journal I had brought but barely written in, and I started writing, not just about what I saw, but about how I felt, about the initial fear, the awkward moments, the small victories, the growing sense of confidence. Pouring my thoughts onto the page felt cathartic. It helped me process everything I was experiencing. On my last full day, I decided to revisit the Charles Bridge at sunrise. I dragged myself out of bed when it was still dark and cold, questioning my sanity. But as I stood on the almost deserted bridge, watching the first rays of sun paint the sky and illuminate the statues, I knew it was worth it. The city was quiet, peaceful, magical. It felt like Prague was sharing a secret just with me. In that moment, standing alone on that ancient bridge, I didn't feel scared or lonely at all. I felt completely, utterly content, strong, capable. The journey home felt different. The airport didn't seem as intimidating. I navigated the check-in and security process with newfound confidence. On the plane, next to a thankfully quiet seatmate this time, I didn't feel anxious. I felt reflective. I looked through the photos on my phone, pictures of stunning architecture, delicious food, and quite a few slightly blurry selfies where I looked windswept but happy. Landing back home was strange. Everything looked the same, but I felt different. The familiar routine didn't seem quite so boring anymore. It was just life, and life could include routine and adventure. The trip hadn't magically solved all my problems or made me a completely different person overnight. I was still Anna, the girl who sometimes struggled to decide on dinner. But now I was also Anna, the girl who had navigated Prague alone. The girl who had gotten lost and found her way. The girl who had faced her fears and discovered a strength she didn't know she had. My mom still worried, but maybe a little less. My dad gave me a proud smile. My friends wanted to hear all about it, and this time I had real stories to tell, not just imagined fears. That first solo trip wasn't perfect. There were moments of doubt, loneliness, and pure awkwardness. But it taught me so much. It taught me that I am more capable than I think. It taught me that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. It taught me that the world is vast and beautiful, and waiting to be explored. and it taught me that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to get completely lost. It sparked a love for travel, yes, but more importantly, it sparked a belief in myself, and that I realized was the greatest souvenir I could have brought home. The little voice inside me wasn't whispering doubts anymore. It was asking, okay, where to next? Wow, recounting that still brings back so many feelings. It really was a turning point for me. Maybe you've had a similar experience, or perhaps you're dreaming of taking your own solo trip. Before we wrap up, let's look at some useful words and phrases that appeared quite a few times in the story. Repeating these words helps you remember them. Key vocabulary, repeated throughout. Solo, alone, by oneself. E.g., my first solo trip. Traveling solo, alone, without other people, e.g., standing alone in an airport, eating alone. Trip, a journey or excursion, e.g., booked a one-week trip, leading up to the trip. Excited excitement, feeling very enthusiastic and eager, e.g., a mix of terror and wild excitement. Friends were mostly excited. Nervous, scared, fear, feeling worried, anxious, or frightened. E.g., I was nervous at first, absolutely, genuinely scared, underneath the fear. Lost, unable to find one's way. E.g., what if I got lost? Don't be afraid to get lost. Discover discovery, find something unexpectedly or during a search. E.g., a whirlwind of exploration and discovery. I discovered I quite liked my own company. Experience, an event or occurrence which leaves an impression. E.g., sharing travel experiences, process everything I was experiencing. Challenge, a task or situation that tests someone's abilities. E.g., next challenge, getting to the hostel. Another challenge was eating alone. Comfortable, comfort. Zone, feeling relaxed and at ease. A situation where one feels safe or at ease. E.g., it was comfortable, safe, queen of comfort zones. Try, make an attempt or effort to do something. E.g., tried to read my guidebook, tried to order coffee. Feel, felt, experience an emotion or sensation. E.g., my life felt predictable. I felt a sharp pang of sadness. How I felt. Beautiful. Pleasing the senses or mind aesthetically. It is beautiful beaches. It was beautiful. Remember, have in or be able to bring to one's mind an awareness of someone or something from the past. E.g., repeating these words helps you remember them. I remembered the feeling. Alone versus lonely. Alone means being physically by yourself. Lonely means feeling sad because you are alone. E.g., being alone didn't have to mean being lonely. Try using some of these words this week. Practice makes perfect. And that's the story of my first solo adventure. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned a few new English words along the way. What about you? Have you ever traveled solo, or is it something you dream about? What's the biggest challenge you've overcome? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your stories and insights. If you found this story helpful or enjoyable, please give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to share it with any friends who are learning English or love travel stories. Most importantly, if you haven't already, Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our next story. We believe learning English is an adventure, and every story takes you one step further. Thanks so much for watching Story-Driven English. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next story. Bye for now.